Okay, you guys ready? Kinda. I only had a few of you, a couple of you emailed me and gave me what type of business you were kind of thinking of, so, but I think a couple of you, several of you didn't. Gary, you're supposed to be up here. You're gonna
There's some guys beating earlier.
screw up the whole space-time continuum, you know, I tell you. God.
Next time.
Huh?
Next time.
Okay. Don't want to be screwing up that space-time continuum, you know. What was that? Was that Back to the Future that they had the... You guys are too young to even remember Back to the Future. Were you guys even born when Back to the Future was made? Nike's coming... Huh?
Wasn't it like 1990?
I might even been before that. I don't know. I think Nike's coming out with the Back to the Future tennis shoe, though, I thought I read, so... Must...
Wasn't it last year, the year that supposedly they jumped forward to?
That what now?
Last year, wasn't it like a day that supposedly they jumped forward to?
It might have been.
2014, I remember the day.
That's
I
possible.
thought it was 2015. I thought I heard that on the news.
So it's this year that the Back to the Future jumped forward to? That could be.
Yeah. It says, remember, this is how we're supposed to dress in 2008.
Yeah.
It's not a bad movie. It's kind of cool. If you guys want to go back and watch an old movie, that's kind of cool. Anyhow, so what's everybody gonna do? Well, let's share it for a couple of reasons, just so we kind of know. Garrett, you gonna do your house remodeling, flipping,
Yeah.
Property Brothers kind of thing?
Yeah. I didn't
Okay.
send you an email though, should I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that way I can put it in my folder, kind of where I keep that. So, Macy, you told me you're gonna do horse massage.
Horse chiropractic massage, yeah.
So, like, what do you do to get a horse's back properly positioned?
You just have to work on them. I don't know, like massage it, and
Wow.
there's different techniques.
Wow. You could jump on it, I guess. You two are thinking of teaming up, Bobby and Ann? What are you guys going to do?
A brewery / winery.
A brewery / winery. We just need to add the distillery, and then we have the trifecta. Dang. Where are you going to have it?
We haven't decided that part yet.
Okay. You can't be within 600 feet of a school.
Okay.
So my backyard's out of the question. I'm too close to the high school. My garage, that wouldn't work either. Yeah. Darn. Yeah. No, there's some places though. Yeah, I don't think, you know, it wouldn't be a bad spot where across from Rod's, that building that's open there. You know,
Yeah.
that would be a nice building for something like that. So, yeah. Trevor.
Me and Alex are thinking about doing like a board shop,
A,
something like that.
a board shop?
Like a skiing and snowboarding shop.
Oh, yeah. Cool. Skiing and snowboarding shop. Okay.
Something like that.
Okay. John?
I was thinking of doing a wood cutting business.
Okay. Firewood?
Yeah.
You gonna do any other stuff like?
Probably just haul it, also block it and stack it up for 'em.
Okay. No rough cut lumber or anything like that, or? Okay. Okay. And then you two are then gonna, Kayla and
Yeah,
Mikkel?
we're not sure yet.
Yeah.
But you're not sure yet?
I don't know.
I was watching TV, and there's a guy that comes on. Maybe you guys have seen him occasionally. You know the Popcorn Colonel? See that out of Great Falls? Okay. Believe it or not, I actually gave him the loan that he needed to start that business. He's a farmer from Joplin. When he came and told me he wanted to start a popcorn business in Great Falls, I thought he was nuts. And so did everybody else, but I've been doing this gig now for 13 years, so it's been way longer than that, probably a couple of years before I left banking anyhow, probably 15 years ago or so. And so anyhow, the Popcorn Colonel guy, I don't think he's ever forgiven me, you know, for going ahead and giving him that loan, because he's been at that business now for quite a while. I think he kind of enjoys it. I think he still does go up farming in Joplin. Believe it or not, in the summers he goes up there. I don't think he has a real big farm in Joplin, but he goes up and does his farming, and then he does the Popcorn Colonel thing in Great Falls. That started out, there was a guy up in Flathead, Kalispell area, that had started that business and then actually franchised or licensed to him to open that one in Great Falls. But then the guy up in Kalispell or whatever shut down, and so he's got the only actual Popcorn Colonel that I know of. So, you know, if somebody wanted to do a popcorn making business, that would be don't know if it'd go over in a town. I don't know if Havre would be big enough to support that. But it's good stuff. You guys ever stop in there? No, it's good product. We'll go down, you can get a big can, and then you fill it for $10 or $15 or something like that it is. So we got a couple of them at home, so when we go to Great Falls, I have to stop in and BS with them. Gary, what's his last name? Don't remember now. Isn't that terrible? Gary, I just have to think about it. Yeah, anyhow. So there's an idea. If you want to open up a popcorn shop, you might just have to pick a different business.
I
And
just did it all.
that's good when you get going on it. And he's got his flavor of the month this last month. I haven't tried it either. He says it's bacon and cheddar. Bacon and cheddar popcorn.
He has some weird flavors.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Boy, some of them are good. His Montana mix is really good. That's cheddar and caramel kind of mixed. That's one of my wife's favorites, I know. And I just like regular. Oh, no, I'll take that back. My favorite, I think, that he does is in the fall. It's a caramel apple. And it's got kind of apple flavored green ones and then regular caramel, and you mix them together. And so, yeah, he does a lot of mixes. He does some experimenting and whatnot. So, anyhow, if somebody's looking for a cool idea, maybe you could call Gary Hochberger. I think that's his last name. You could call him up and see if you could franchise the popcorn kernel in a different location. It might work up in Havre on a really small scale if you didn't want to do anything real major. Sell it, through sporting events and those types of things. He started out doing that. I don't think he does that anymore because that took a real lot of work for him. And I think now that the business is established enough, he doesn't do it quite so much. So, okay. Anybody have any questions about their specific business or anything like that? Okay. We're going to start out, I'll kind of painstakingly go through some things that you guys have maybe seen in business finance. You guys have all seen in business finance, I'm sorry, but we'll go through the financials. One thing I said in business finance, that when you get through that and you come here, my expectation is that you put a lot more research into this project, okay? So I told you in business finance, keep it really simple, do something that's very basic, okay? Because I just want you to kind of understand the numbers. But now I want you to do some research, okay? So if you need, I don't know what a horse masseuse would need for equipment. Tack, some sort maybe.
They used to use like a little mallet for it, but I'm not sure if that's like the old style or not. But I have a friend that does it, and so I was gonna contact her.
Aren't you gonna need like head stalls and
well, not for no, because you don't ride them while you're working on them. It's like they're just standing there,
Okay.
they're just tied up.
Okay. Don't you have to have what kind of contraption like they use for cows when a chute?
No.
Don't you?
Just have a halter on, tie them up. It's not like they're wild or anything.
And they're
when working on
patient
them.
and they sit there and let you do that? Wow.
Not like if they're uncomfortable, they'll probably move around, but they're not gonna
Okay.
go crazy.
Okay. Anyhow, you need to research and find, the type of equipment, you guys for your wine and for your beer thing. It's not enough to tell me that you need boilers and this and that. You need to go and see what a place, there are suppliers out there. Great resource, call Mike Garrity at Triple Dog and say, hey Mike, where'd you get your stuff from? And we're doing a project for college. We're really, maybe are, I don't know, but we're probably not going to open up and compete against you, but we're doing this for a project. So I don't know, if you're serious about opening one, then you probably wouldn't want to call him and get it through him. But nonetheless, you could call Dr. Z's in Wolf Point. There's a brewery in Wolf Point there. Is it called Dr. Z's? And there's 3 or 4 of them. There's the Front, Bowser's, and what's the other one? The one in Bell. Okay. You're going to have some types of cutters and those types of things. So I want you to research and get me accurate pricing on those types of things. Okay. When it comes time to put in what you're going to borrow, who you're going to borrow it from and those types of things. Again, I want you to do the research. I want you to do the footwork. I want you to call the bank. I want you to talk to a lender. Okay. I want you to say, this is so-and-so. I'm working on a project. Can you give me 5 minutes of your time? Yes, please, thank you, all those other things. Most of them will give you 5 minutes of their time, okay? And what kind of interest rate, what kind of term would I be able to finance something like that on? Okay, I'm gonna spend a little bit of time. By the way, I'll probably talk for maybe a half hour today, and then I'll turn you guys loose and let you kind of get started on this and whatnot. So, okay. So you call the lender, you get all that information. Your lender might say, oh, that sounds like that would require an SBA type of a loan. Okay, yeah, we might have to do a little bit of research on that. Okay, I believe the SBA loans, they used to be 7A was one, and 504B, I think might have been the numbers for the SBA loans. Okay, 504Bs, if I got the number right, they were real estate loans, and 7As were other types of loans. I know that they have made some drastic changes in SBA guaranteed loans. They used to guarantee a bigger portion, I think up to 85%. But it required a lot more work on the front end. I think now banks just get like a 50% guarantee, but they don't have to do quite as much stuff working with the SBA. You guys might have to do a little research on that for me. It'd be kind of interesting. I mean, they're fairly recent changes. So, okay. And we'll talk a little bit about finance because I want you guys to do some of that, right? Let's go ahead and get started, go through the startup deal. I probably won't spend as much time as I did when we were in business finance because I imagine that most of you guys have been through this, right? Again, though, you're going to start, for me, do the bottom part first, right? The startup expenses. I don't really like to call them expenses, startup investments, okay? Startup things that you're going to purchase if you guys are going to purchase your building. Okay, you might there again. You might have to do the research, right? Okay, you might have to call Terry Munson at Northern Land and Realty and ask him what might be available for locations. And Terry has a real interest in breweries. Okay, I know that firsthand. Macy.
So are we gonna, this is kind of go back to the loan thing, but are we gonna have to take out a loan? Are you like requiring that?
Yeah, I want you to build that into your plan. So I want everybody to, no matter what you're doing, okay, to be required to at least borrow some money.
So even like if I'm just doing a service, like I would take a loan for like what I don't even really need a building, but
Yeah, some startup costs then maybe. You might need a vehicle
okay.
to travel.
Okay.
You're gonna have to travel, right, to get to your patients,
Great.
customers, patients, whatever they might be. What do you call a horse that needs help? A patient, a victim after you're done with them, or client? Okay. So everybody needs to incorporate some type of loan. Okay. Might be term, it might not. Garrett's is always going to be a little bit interesting because you're going to be yours might be more of an operating type of a loan, we call that maybe. Okay, where you're going to take some advances while you're working on that place, and then you're going to pay it off. Okay, it might be a little different than when we get to the income statement, and not so much the income statement, but the cash flow. Okay, and we didn't spend a lot of time, you and I, on that in finance, but we might want to do it correctly on this one. So we might have to spend a little bit of time outside. Well, when you guys are working on stuff, then I can come around and you and I can kind of spend some time doing that. So, okay, purchase, construction, remodeling, right? Leasehold improvements. Okay, if you don't purchase a location, okay, you might have to make improvements. Who pays for the improvements? If you go up to the mall and you want to locate in a place up in the mall, you're going to be responsible for making those leasehold improvements, not the mall. Okay, you're going to put carpets on the floor, you're going to paint the walls, you're going to fix the ceilings, put in the light fixtures, do those types of things. That's not the mall. Okay, that gets to be your requirements. So, okay, and those can be somewhat expensive. We do have up here under the real estate too, if you've got to do some construction remodeling. Again, Mike would be a great resource for that down at the brewery. So, and for a lot of these things, and I've said this, a lot of them, your basic equipment and stuff, you probably go online and find it. But a lot of this stuff, if you can't, don't be afraid to call the SBDC. Don't be afraid to call Bear Paw Development, ask for their SBDC guy. If it's not Joe LaPlante, whoever it is now, okay, they can find a lot of this stuff for you. Okay, or they're more than willing to help. Let's put it that way. Okay, location and admin expenses. Like in finance, these are the things that come up just before startup, right? You don't put in here your first year's worth of rent unless you have to pay that in advance, which would be really unusual. Okay, Your deposit, you may have deposits, both utility, you may have a rental deposit. Do the research. You're going to have to tell me that. Okay. Prepaid insurance, we went over that in finance. Okay, this time you get to do the research, so you get to call the insurance person. You get to ask them, do I need to pay a year in advance? Do I have to pay 6 months in advance? Maybe it's going to be 6 months in advance, and then, in July we're going to have another cash outlay, right? And on our income statement, we got to write it off on a monthly basis then, right? Okay. Pre-opening salaries, again, just those dollars that you have to pay before you open. If you do, you may not. And it might depend on the complexity of your business or the simplicity of your business, whichever the case may be. Opening inventory, I think one of my folks that was this, or was that you guys, talking about the craft store, that you mentioned that might be a possibility. Is that you guys? Okay. Yeah, I think inventory is going to be a big deal in a craft store because there's just a lot of different things. I'm guessing. I'm not a craft type of person, but my wife's dragged me into Ben Franklin or whatever a couple times, and there's just all kinds of stuff in there, right? Okay, so it's this wide variety of inventory. 5 might not be enough. You can sure categorize it though. I mean, you don't have to, for this purpose, okay, you don't have to itemize everything that's going to be in your inventory. Kind of like a hardware store would be really hard too, right, Bobby? Yeah, I mean, a hardware store would just have all kind, you would spend 20 pages just on the plumbing fixtures, or plumbing supplies, the little whatever connectors and everything else, okay? So no, you would have category 1 plumbing, right? Now, you may need to break that down a little further. You might have to use another spreadsheet, open up another sheet down here and kind of break it down, okay? Do you have to break it down to the infant? No, but I need you to break it down some, okay? If you have some questions about that when you're going through it, let me know. Okay, I might look at it and say, well, what about? And you might have to go break that down a little bit more for me. So, okay, so put your inventory into different categories if you have some inventory. Advertising and promotion. Again, in finance, we were able to guess at this a little bit. Okay, no guessing. You get to call the radio station if you're going to do radio. You get to call the newspaper if you're going to do newspaper. Even Heather, who teaches our marketing classes, right? She put an ad in for advanced marketing. Anybody in advanced marketing? Yeah. And she mentioned the ad to me, and she goes, God, it costs $100 or whatever for, whatever. And I said, yeah. I said, advertising's pretty pricey. It's not cheap, right? But it's an investment, okay? It's something that a lot of folks need to do, right? So you're going to have to make those phone calls, do those types of things. And again, at this point is going to be the pre-startup advertising expenses that we might have. So I'm not worried about, at this point, your monthly bill at the radio station or your monthly bill at the newspaper, or monthly bill wherever it might be. I'm not worried about that here, but I'm worried about, are you going to have a sign? Are you going to have awnings on the outside? Okay, what's those awnings going to cost? Who am I going to call? Who am I going to ask about those things, right? Okay, I think Montana Sign still does awnings, okay? And they're right here in Havre, and you give Brian a call at Montana Sign. Brian or Mickey, I think, are both Montana Sign, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, maybe you're going to put up a reader sign. Okay, yeah, guess what? You get to make some phone calls. I think again Brian does some of those. Okay, what if you want a billboard? Yeah, might have to call who they sell to, Epcon maybe. You might have to call them. Billboards are expensive, $600, $700 a month. To have a billboard. So billboards are really effective for some types of businesses. Other types are a little less effective, so you might want to do a little research on that depending. Okay. Other expense, you might have some unique things. This could be long, it could be short, it could be nothing. So that's going to depend on you guys and your particular business. Yeah, so then we gotta figure out what our gotta go back up to the top then, I'm sorry. Because only then, okay, only when we figured out what our costs are going to be do we go back up and fill in the top part where we decide what we're going to do. Your bank loans may be several because, believe me, the bank's going to say, certain equipment we can finance for 5 years. Certain equipment we might be able to finance for 7 years. Real estate we can finance for 15 years to 25 years. Things like that, right? So in finance, you probably kept it kind of simple and you had one, maybe 2 loans, some of you. You may end up with 2 or 3 potentially different loans when we take a look at this. Okay, it's no more complicated. It's just that you got 3 things instead of 1, and so you got to plug them in and make it work. So, okay, and then other sources, that'll be similar. That's going to be what you're going to invest yourselves, or what you're going to get your angel uncle or aunt, to help you out. And not unlike, again, I'll keep picking on the brewery down there, but I'm sure that's how Mike kind of got his deal set up down there at the brewery, was with some help from family and friends and whatnot. So, okay. Any questions about startup? Okay. Just real quickly, again, this one, I'm not going to spend much time on this, kind of whip through it, but financing your business. Oh, there you go. Doesn't have anything to do with financing your business, but just thought, given the level of security and stuff that we have to go through at the airport, just in case. What's your business profile, right? How much is going to be equity? How much is going to be debt? We've got to decide on that. Okay. I'd encourage people to push the debt side, right? I've always said debt's cheaper than equity, right? Okay. Wouldn't you want to keep as much cash, as much of your own cash on the sidelines as you can, in case you might need it later on? As the need arises, you might need that, right? So I'd kind of push that, and that's going to be a question that you might have to ask your banker. The stage of your business development, obviously you guys are all starting. I got one business, I got one distance couple that's going to work on one that is existing, so that might be a little bit different there. Okay, the appeal of your business. The appeal can attract, certainly can attract investors, right? A new business, we talked about some of those crowdsourcing or crowdfunding types of things that are coming up. Most of those are going to be for kind of new ideas, new products, maybe new services or whatever that are coming into play. The amount of capital, can it be financed personally? Do you have enough money? Bootstrapping, anybody know what bootstrapping is? There's a whole book written by a guy out of Bozeman. It's Gianforte. I think it's Greg Gianforte, I think, if I'm not mistaken. He started a company called Right Now Technologies. I think he's a billionaire, but I'm not quite sure about that. But worth a lot of money anyhow. And then he wrote a book, How to Start a Company Doing Bootstrapping. And that's begging, borrowing, and stealing is my simple explanation. You just kind of do whatever you need to do to try to get your business up and going, right? Trading, that's the bartering part, You get somebody, you promise them you're going to supply them a 6-pack or a growler of beer every week for the rest of their life or something, It'd be worth a lot. Conventional financing, a little tough, right? Instead, you got personal resources, family, friends, angels. If you got money saved up, Business appeal. Everyone thinks your business idea is wonderful, but you need solid, objective information. Believe me, I had, oh golly, in a year's time, I'd probably get 40 or 50 applications at the bank for small business startups, and everybody thought their idea was wonderful, okay, but nobody wanted to put any money into it, zero, okay, and my common response kind of was, if that's such a good idea, maybe the bank should just do that and we'll leave you out since you're not going to put any money into it, and that didn't work. Okay, one of the main reasons banks want you to put money in doesn't have anything to do with the collateral, and when you sell the collateral after you got to repossess it, because banks always lose money on that anyways. It's because if you don't put any money into it, you don't have any interest in it. It's too easy to walk away. And so if you're putting 20% or 30% down on the business, you got a $100,000 business and you're putting 20 or 30 grand into it, you're not just going to turn around and walk away. You're going to try to stick it out, right? And that's the main reason that banks want to see some equity investment in there. So startup costs, working capital. Don't forget, I didn't talk about working capital on your startup there, but that's a key component. Again, we made that kind of easy on the finance, but I think we'll get back to what the SBA, I think, standard is, about 6 months worth of operating expenses. So it's okay to make a little guess at the start, but then you might want to highlight that on your Excel, put that in yellow or whatever, and then when we do your income statement and you figure out what your operating expenses are, You know, we calculate, add up 6 months worth of that. It's not too tough. We might end up going back and changing that. Okay, you might be able to kind of in your mind figure out about what 6 months operating expenses is and come pretty close. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be exact. Even the SBA doesn't say it's got to be exactly 6 months of operating expenses. Okay, but it needs to be kind of in that ballpark is what they're looking for. And it's a reasonable goal to shoot for. It's a reasonable number. Personal resources. Can you, if you already own some equipment or something for your business, can that become a part of your investment? Sure. Okay. Often that's the way a lot of businesses worked out. You know, somebody that was wanting to start their own auto shop, you know, they already had all their personal tools and stuff, right? Thousands of dollars worth of tools and equipment maybe. Okay. They might not have a lot of money to put into it, but they would pledge those types of resources, okay, as collateral possibly. So nothing wrong with that. Your rich uncle, right? Your uncle might have an equity stake, or aunt, okay, might have an equity stake, right? You give them 20% of the business or something. They might gift that to you. That's a little bit rare. Gifts are a little bit odd too. The SBA might require that you actually get a gift letter from your aunt or uncle. Yeah, because they want to make sure that it was considered a gift, that aunt or uncle's not going to come back a year from now and want to get paid back with interest and all those other things. And so they might require that. And then debt would be just an actual loan to auntie or uncle, right? I'm going to pay them instead of a bank. Bootstrapping, kind of talked about that, right? You can finance accounts receivable, right, through terms escaping me right now. That's what happens when you get old. You can sell your accounts receivable anyhow to something like John Deere Credit maybe or something like that. They do that. Do they still use John Deere Credit? I didn't think so. They're all direct bill now, aren't they? Yeah. Oh, what's the term for that? Shoot, why is it escaping me? Business teacher, I can't even remember stuff like that. Inventory management, we want to keep our inventory probably as low as we can, but you don't want to run out either, right? Stockouts are more expensive than having too much inventory. Accounts payable, can we delay some things when we start? Can we delay some payments? And then, of course, expense control. Form of business is important, so you need to be thinking about that as you do your startup. Are you going to be an LLC, which would be fairly common, or are you going to be maybe a corporation, a C corporation? That would be a little more rare. Are you going to be a partnership? Maybe. You know, if you don't have a lot at stake personally, a partnership is fine. Okay. If personally you've got assets that you've accumulated and whatnot, you may want to protect those with more of a limited liability type of an enterprise, an organization. Venture capitalists do exist out there. There are people that are venture capitalists. That's kind of that crowdfunding. That's really what that is about. Is kind of venture capitals. You know, look some of those up. Small business incubation centers. That's some of those places, and I don't think it fits into your businesses necessarily. But what they would offer oftentimes is like maybe free rent. Okay, if you're doing a service type of a business, you might have a free rent. They might even have a common receptionist that would answer the phone, you know, and depending on the phone number that was coming in, or they could read it, you know, or who it's for, you know, hey, this is, they would actually help your business, right? Or cheap rent, right? In that case, probably wouldn't be free. I don't think we have an incubation center. There was actually one downstairs here for a while, but it didn't really take off or anything, so. Angels, IPOs, initial public offerings. None of you guys are going to do IPOs, I don't think, but you can do private offerings. You might be able to attract other investors depending on what your business is. Forms of business, you guys should have been through all these several times in different classes, so I'm not going to belabor them. Other things you could conceivably do. Venture capital, we've talked about that, SBICs, angels, going public, private, debt financing. Select a banker, right? Okay. Credit unions typically don't do business types of loans, so you know. Okay, so you're probably looking at a commercial bank. What the types of loans are, what do bankers look for? Asset-based financing, they're going to want collateral. That's all that's really saying. Leasing can be an alternative to borrowing, right? So that's a question to ask maybe about your equipment. Can you just lease it? Maybe. There might be places that offer leases like that. Some of them will offer a lease-to-own, rent-to-own type of a program too. That's possible. That's okay. I don't want to talk about these too long. You know, lines of credit, that's where Garrett's loan request might be a little different than others. Are you going to personally guarantee it if you're an LLC? Probably. It'd be unusual that you would not. What lenders look for? There's only 6 of them. Usually, what are we up to? Oh, the five C's is right. Character, capacity, collateral, capital, conditions, and documentation is kind of a key thing. So you guys are going to have to do personal financial statements, all that other good stuff, right, for your loan request. It's going to end up in your business plan. The actual personal financial statements, don't worry about those now. That'll come when we do the management organization plan, along with your resume. Okay, so I'm just worried about the business's financial statements at this point in time. Factoring. Yeah, that's the term. Thank God I put it on here so it doesn't drive me crazy. Accounts receivable inventory. Factoring is selling your accounts receivable to a third party. Okay. That can be a real valuable cash flow thing. Okay, if you do accounts receivable, you know, they're doing direct bill now at Haver Home Hardware. It used to be under John Deere Credit. When I went down and I bought something, I'd sign my name. Okay, Murray, he would get funded probably that same day. You know, maybe the day after. I don't know exactly when it would occur, but it would automatically ship to John Deere Credit that I'd bought something. Say it was $100. Boom, Murray would get 95, something like that. I don't know what the ratio was. 95, 96 bucks. Okay, and then John Deere would take the risk of me paying, and they would take the time too, because it would take, you know, I'd get 30 days to have to pay, right? Because by the time they send me the bill, it might even be 60 days, 45 days, because they got a billing cycle, so they might not send me a bill for 20 days, and then I have 30 days past that to pay or something like that, right? Okay, so they take that expense, and they take the risk, because what happens if I don't pay? Murray didn't have to worry about it. If I didn't pay, John Deere came after me. Murray didn't have to do that, so that's kind of a neat way to do it. By the way, if you're going to do a credit again, this will be quite a bit different on your cash flow. If you're going to do a credit type of a business where you're going to allow people to charge things on your business, okay, we're going to have to work that out on the cash flow, and I don't think anybody did that on their finance project. It would be a little different. We'll work on that individually if you're going to do that for your particular type of business. So, okay. It's not that difficult. We just need to do a few things a little different. Leasing, talked about, trade credit, life insurance. You might have to. Odds are in a business like this, you might be required to obtain some life insurance and actually pledge it as collateral. Okay, kind of a key man insurance or something can happen. Different government programs we could take a look at. SBA, FSA, they had a business and industry. I'm not sure that they do it so much anymore. I have to check into that. BIA used to have a really good program actually, but then it became really difficult, really tough to deal with, and so most of those we'd end up going with the SBA anyways. State and local, that's MBOI, Montana Board of Investments. They used to have a robust program too. I don't know if they still do, but the Bear Paw Development, they've got a very good micro lending program with Bear Paw Development. They do really good. Really well. So if you have a small loan, by micro loan, I think 15,000 or under. So depending again on the size of your business and whatnot, their micro loan program may be great for something like that. Okay, maybe a little longer than I wanted to go. When you finish that, and I'll wait, we'll go on to the opening day balance sheet, of course, and you guys have been through this. Balance sheet. Cash flow. Okay. Get the book, check the balance sheet. Obviously, you got balance. Okay. Then there's some requirements that are beyond as well. So, questions before you get started? Before I turn you loose? Nobody's got any questions? Okay. I'll shut up, and you guys can get started doing the work on your business plans.